Sales are slow. Chances are your prices are too high. We're going to talk about that on the other side. So without any further ado, let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is John from Flippin' Ain't Easy. And as I mentioned on the other side, there's maybe a possibility here that your slow sales are due to your prices being too high. And I'm going to show you an example of this here in a little bit, just maybe a subtle example. And there's so many more. I could probably pull up a product, just a random product, and find a handful of sellers who are overpriced. And you can say that pricing your item is subjective, and there's a lot that goes into it. I'm sure that a lot of you guys try to figure out, what am I into this item for and what do I want to get out of it? And I think that's a mistake. And of course, you always want to know what you're into the item for. But as far as determining a price that you want to get for the item without looking at the market. Now, what is the market? I talk about the market all the time, allowing your item's price to be set by the market. You know, and the market isn't what Walmart's selling it for. The market isn't what Amazon's selling it for. The market is what eBay is selling it for, or what the solds are on eBay. And this price, the sold price on eBay, is a representation of what your buyers historically, within the last 90 days, have been willing to pay for the item that you're offering for sale. Now, it's very important, real quick, to understand that you need to be comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges. If you have an open boxed item, okay, that's not brand new. So you shouldn't be trying to get exactly brand new prices for that open box item unless the solds, or in this case the market, has said that historically you can get that price for your open boxed item. Okay, a lot of people have used items. They see that the solds for the new ones have sold for, let's say, $200, and then they're trying to get every bit of that on their used item and wondering why they're not making a sale. So you need to consider your condition of the item that you're selling. Of course, evaluating your item is always key before you list it, before you bother to list it. And I think we all know that. But I think beyond that is where people kind of get lost, in that they want top dollar for their items. And especially when we're sourcing, we're looking at the sold comps, right? But I think sometimes, like at a yard sale, these are used items for the most part. Okay, and we're looking at the sold comps and we're saying, oh, I can get $200 for this item, but you're not looking at the condition. That may have gone brand new or open box for $200, but if you're selling it as used, you need to temper your expectations, because you're not going to get that kind of a price for your used item. And so I think it's very important that when we're looking at the sold comps, even go a step further and filter your search results so that you're only looking at the item condition that you're selling. So you can be doing everything right. You know how we talk on these videos about having the perfect listing, or at least striving to. It's very hard to have the perfect listing. It's certainly possible, but no one's expecting that of anyone here watching this video. You want to strive to have the perfect listing, but you can have all that down pat and still be dealing with a situation where your item is priced too high. And really the only way, and you could still have higher priced items and make money. I'm not here to try to tell you that you can't. I think one thing a lot of us have to realize is that it is possible to sell an item on eBay over market, okay, over what the market dictates. And there's a number of factors that require you to be successful. Now, dropshippers do this all the time. They simply take an item, let's say on Amazon, that's $100. They mark it up to like 110 so they can make a little cut after they've drop shipped the item. And they're able to make those kind of sales too over market. So it's very possible. And I'm not saying that if you overprice your items, you're never going to make sales. But see, here's the thing. We're trying to increase our sales. And I think a lot of people, when I look at their stores, when they ask me for reviews of their stores, I start going through it and I see that they've been able to build an impressive store and their sales are still slow. They're still making sales, but if you look at the bigger picture, a lot of it is because many of, not all, but many of their items are just priced higher than market. And it's going to take a little longer or a lot longer to sell those items that are overpriced because people are trying to get good deals. That's why you see a lot of drop shippers that make sales, but someone who's done it myself before in drop shipping, you're not killing it with higher prices, okay? That's the disadvantage that drop shippers have. And I think sometimes we might even be looking at some of the solds that maybe a drop shipper has maybe sold an item for and get the impression that this item actually can be sold higher than it actually can. A lot of you guys might be commenting down below saying, hey, my items are priced what I think is fine. I'm still making sales. It's higher than market. And that's fine. And it's going to contribute towards you building a big store instead of churning and getting rid of that merchandise. And, Tommy Bernard podcast was on the live a couple weeks ago, and I think I may have mentioned this already, but I'll mention it again because it's that important that so many resellers are looking at or focusing on the wrong thing when it comes to your store. And I think a lot of us have the impression, maybe from watching a lot of these YouTube channels, that the goal is to build as big of a store as you can, but if you're selling your items at a slow rate, you're just building a store, but you're still not really making a whole lot of money. I've never had 1,000 items in my store. I kind of strive to build my store because I think it's a numbers game, and it is. If I'm pricing my items properly, these items are going to sell. For me, they sell at about 1.5 to 2 items per 100 items every day is what I'm selling at. And I can attribute that to a lot of things, but I can certainly tell you this. Because I'm not selling the greatest item, my price is a big part of that, okay? You shouldn't be striving to build a big store. You should be striving to say, how am I going to get rid of this stuff? How am I going to sell this stuff? It looks pretty on eBay to see that, large store and, pretty pictures that you've been able to generate for each one of these listings that you have. But what does it really mean, to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 item store when you're only selling, let's say, 5 to 10 items a day? And if you have a 2, 3, 5,000 item store, selling 5 to 10 items a day is not very good, to be honest with you. It's more impressive to me to have a 500 item store and you're selling 10 to 15 items a day, and now you're trying to keep up with the churn just to keep the size of your store where it is. And it's not the end of the world to sell more items than you can list. Of course, that means you probably are doing the right things and you probably should be trying to get more items up if you can. But you need to have, it starts with your price, okay? There's a lot of people who will search your items by price. In fact, when I was doing the cutaway video I'm going to show you here, I had to take mine off of, for whatever reason, eBay defaults me as with lowest price plus shipping over best match. And I think it's because I've used that so many times. eBay has defaulted me to that. But you're going to have a large element of your user base who are going to be sorting their search results by lowest price, okay? They know what they want. They want the item. They want it at the lowest price. And they're going to be sorting their item based on that and that alone. And if you're priced too high, you're not going to be very high in their search results. So let's look up a JBL Charge 5 Bluetooth speaker. And as the first thing you see out the gate, it shows you Bose speakers, which I find pretty odd. But I digress. You see the average prices are around $130, $135, $99 for a JBL Charge 5. Some are a little lower, but I think that's due to condition. So let's look at the solds to see exactly what these things are selling for, not just what people want. So that's an auction, 105.11. That's not really what we're looking at. 135.99, okay. We have another 108. We have 129. We have auction at 107.50. There's 114. Let's see, another 135, a 124, 134.95, and I think we get the idea that it's about 120 to 130-ish, give or take, right, is sort of what the market is. Now, I want to go back to what's listed here. I want to find somebody who is maybe priced too high, and you're going to get this type of seller in every bunch. Now, I do see one right there, 149.95, and there's a 145.99 right there, and that's new open box. So you can see that's way too high. And as you can see here, this particular listing, this is open box. This is almost used. I mean, I guess you can make a case for an open box, but they're way too high at 145.99 for this particular item. And if you go back and see what they've sold, even their solds are within the range, 129 to 139. And even though this person's at 145.99, they've priced themselves over the market. Now, that's not the best example of what I was trying to portray in this video, but I hope you get the idea. In the example that I showed you on the computer, someone who's selling that JBL Charge 5 speaker is probably going to want to get their items priced somewhere between 120 and 130, okay, if they want to get the best bang for their buck and churn the items as quickly as possible. To go 145, I think, is just pushing it. And while you can, of course, get 145, you better be promoting the heck out of that item, because you need to find, see, again, the game is, no matter what we're talking about, pricing, photos, and we haven't even talked about photos yet, but your listing, your title, everything that goes into the listing, it does one thing. It gets your item in search. You can have the perfect listing and in your mind the perfect price, and if you're stuffed on page 5, good luck with that. Okay, so how do we get our items higher in search? And so we know that there's two major ways that people search for an item. They default at best match. Okay, so if your prices are high, you can still pop up high in that search, but you better be promoting the heck out of your listing. Or in a lowest price plus shipping search, and then of course, if you're priced too high, you ain't never going to show up on the first page on that search unless you are very limited, unless your item is very limited and you're dealing with low competition. And let's say there's only a handful of that item, and you have a better chance of making that work. But you then, even if your price is priced too high, even in a low market situation or a low competition situation, you better have a compelling listing, and you better have a selling point that gets the buyer to buy your item over the lower price ones. And that starts with great photos, great description, excellent title, that type of thing. And I think by just pricing your items too high, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and it puts too much pressure to have to accomplish all those other things. And it really starts at your price, as far as I'm concerned, because of that lowest price search that a lot of people use. So that's the biggest problem, though, for me, is a lot of people need to be honest with themselves and really take a deep dive and ask themselves, am I selling enough items? And is it because my items are priced too high? If you're serious, now maybe you're not. Maybe you do this just for fun. Maybe it's a pastime. Maybe you tell yourself this is your new job, but you're not taking it seriously. And that's a different discussion for a different day. But you really need to take the time, take a look at your inventory, especially the stuff that you feel should have already been sold, and try to figure out maybe if it's because you've priced it simply too high, and that's higher than what the market is willing to pay. And I'm not advocating for us to get into a race to the bottom. That's not what I'm advocating. Not that Amazon mentality to, see how low we can go just so we can move our items. But we need to find that happy place, and that's where the market is, and get our items priced as close to that number for each item as possible. And don't go a whole lot lower than that. I mean, you can undercut people. That's a strategy, undercut people. But when you're undercutting, you're not doing yourself a service at all by going too far under that market price. So again, we all need to establish what the market price is for that item, and then work our strategy, whether it's being in the middle, whether it's being the highest point to get as much as we can, maybe be at the top. So in the case of the JBL speaker, we're at 130 and not 120, right? And if you like to undercut your competition to get the item sold quicker, then you're probably going to be at 115, 120. But I wouldn't go 100. I wouldn't go 105, because ultimately, I think sometimes you can hurt the market, but also you can hurt your profits. And I think that's the biggest thing. We're leaving a lot of money on the table when we undercut too much. So guys, what do you think? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. There's a lot of different strategies out there, and I'm not here to poo-poo on any of them. You know, what works for you works for you. But what I'm saying is be mindful of the market for the item you're selling based on the condition you're selling it for, to help you determine the correct pricing. Because just what you want for an item is not going to cut it. eBay will determine, based on the market, what your item should sell for. So guys, hit that like button. I'd appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. That always helps the channel. And hit that notification bell, so when I go live or make another video, you're going to be notified. So obviously I'm not doing a live stream today on Friday, but I will be dropping one very soon. Going to be busy this weekend, have some plans, going to do some things with some friends and family. So I won't be able to do a live stream until probably Monday, and so keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, take time this weekend if you have a chance. Go over your listings that you've already created and just check. See if you're within the market for your listings, because that could be holding you back. We talk about a lot of things when it comes to your listing, and pricing is just yet another example of how flipping ain't easy. And I want you guys to have an excellent rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you very soon.